What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Real Ones Canes podcast. He is Brandon O'Doy. Follow him on X at Brandon_O'Doy. I'm the Beast, Brian London. Follow me at Miami Radio Beast. You can also follow me on the TikTok. I do some ranting there. I'm on the Blue Sky. Brandon's on the Blue Sky. Just go find us wherever you want to find us. We're all over the place. And subscribe to the podcast wherever you're getting this podcast. Subscribe to the YouTube wherever you're seeing this. That would be really helpful. Brandon, we're coming off a 42-12, 42-14, 42-14 win over Wake Forest last Saturday at Hard Rock. You were up in Big Ten country at the Horseshoe. We'll get to that in a second. Miami on defense looked lost the first series, but after that, Lance Guidry and his squad, battened down the hatches and did a good job against a Wake Forest team, which is really not that good. You know, they're 4-7, 2-5 in the conference. Regardless, Miami gets the victory, and now we're heading down to the nitty gritty, right? They're 10-1 with one game left against Syracuse. We'll get to that in a second, but Miami's win against Wake Forest. They did enough to get the victory. The offense looked just okay, other than Jordan Lyle, who looked spectacular. We can talk about that young man, but just your thoughts on Miami's win against Wake Forest.
Yeah, I think, it was a game that, Miami was favored to win big, and they were able to do that. I mean, just watching the game on Gamecast, we're sitting there at dinner thinking like, all right, not dinner, but we're sitting there like at the Ohio State game where I was. We're just like, all right, Miami's in a dogfight with Wake Forest. Like, what's going on? You know what I mean? And then it kind of got later, and then they scored, and then they scored, and it was like 17-14, and then all of a sudden Miami just kind of took off from there. But it's the way this team's been winning. It's the most comfortable win maybe was Florida State. I don't know, but at home. But this team has given you reasons to have, anxiety or stress for the first half, and then, button clicks, and then the second half they kind of clean things up. The only game they weren't able to do that is the game they lost. And they still did turn it on in the second half. They had a little bit too much to overcome defensively. It was probably the game where you realize the fragility of this team, meaning if the offense doesn't score 40 points, the defense is going to give up to a good team a certain number of points, and that's going to probably cost you games. If you have two games, if the offense and the defense have a bad game on the same day, you're not going to be able to find a way to win ball game. And good teams find a way to win games where they don't play well. All okay teams find a way to do that some of the time. And, I wouldn't put this Miami team in the great category. They can play great, but I haven't seen them play great since Florida. I mean, and a lot of that is the dynamic of how the team has kind of, come to be. Things we thought we knew, but we were very careful to say, okay, we don't want to read too much into this. Well, the Florida win now looks great. At the time, we weren't sure, what it was, but you beat Florida at home. LSU couldn't fill it off. Neither could Ole Miss. Okay, but Miami came out in that game. They played the most complete game. Offensively, they were a juggernaut. They literally could not be stopped. The defensive line was bar none one of the best. A Florida fan would argue and say, well, we didn't have DJ Lagway. Well, they played him at the end of the game, and that's when they started moving the ball. So you could kind of see signs of, like, what was ahead, what was the future for that team. But bottom line is, it doesn't even matter what happened with Wake. This is a 2-game season. You got to win, and then you got to win the ACC championship to make something special happen. I think if Mario Cristobal can figure out a way to win these next 2 games, I feel like, Miami is back. And I think moving forward, it just sets the tenor for everything that could potentially happen in recruiting, in facility upgrades, and all of the panoply of things that you want to see around a competitive college football program.
Before we jump ahead, Jordan Lyle just was sensational the other day. Had 7 carries, 115 yards, including a 61-yard touchdown run, which was, I mean, he had jetpacks on. He was flying down the field. Just your thoughts on this young man. He's a freshman. It looks like he is going to be the next, great one, hopefully, at running back for the University of Miami.
Yeah, I truly believe he will be. I mean, you got to remember, it was strange to me how Miami kind of didn't go all in on him to the very end. This is another guy that was flipped from Ohio State late. It's the thing about him is, he's big and fast, and you don't typically see that combo. You know what I mean? And when I say he's fast, I mean he's got track speed. So
Yeah.
he's the kind of guy that when he gets going, you don't want to, everybody's making business decisions on whether or not they want to try to bring him down. I've been a little bit confused as to his lack of use, in this, sort of, running back, stable, so to speak. But at the end of the day, the coaches may have a game plan. Maybe he's a guy that you start running later in the year, along with possibly AJ Allen. I don't know what's going on, but, I like bringing him in, change of pace. It's probably not a guy you prepare a lot for. Martinez and Fletcher have gotten most of the carries this year. But, I mean, he's had the most explosive runs of anybody. You know what I mean? And Saturday was just another addition to that. But I have to say, it's been against inferior competition. It's not like he's doing this against Duke, Louisville, Georgia Tech. But he also wasn't given opportunities in those games either. So, I don't know. It remains to be seen. I like what we have in him as a running back. Great recruiting by Coach Tim Harris, who's no longer here. Benedict Hippolyte, Mario Cristobal, everybody that brought Lyle to the University of Miami. That was a great St. Thomas Hall. Two kids we haven't heard from yet, Ryan Mack, Chance Robinson. But, for the ones we've seen, OJ Federic, Jordan Lyle, hey, so far it's 2 for 4, and it can end up being 4 for 4. That's a great St. Thomas Aquinas Raiders Miami Hurricane recruiting class. And that is a pipeline for Miami. The Heritage kids come somewhat, but the St. Thomas top kids have gone to Miami more times than not. And so going back to the Sam Bruces and going back to, all the talented kids, the Philip Dorsetts and, going all the way back. So it's good news for that as well.
Yeah, it was so nice to see him. And I think maybe you'll agree with me, maybe you won't. I think what we're probably going to see is, if I had to guess, I don't know anything at all, but it would seem to me that maybe we might see AJ Allen hit the portal.
No, he's going to the portal.
Yeah.
He I think that, there's been some rumblings behind the scenes and can't get into sources and things like that, but I would not be surprised, let's put it like that, to see him hit the portal. But I mean, at some point it's only one football, man. And the problem Miami is having is a good problem to have, is just every offensive position has been weaponized.
Right.
You got receiver, you got quarterback. Well, let's start with quarterback. You got a quarterback that can be a weapon. So he's going to want to make things happen. You got 3 deep, if not 4 deep at running back. The wide receiver position, your 4th best guy has 500 yards, okay? Then you got tight ends that are playing their minds out. You know what I mean? You got a first rounder in Arroyo, which I haven't given you enough credit. You called it. I mocked you. I did it all to you. You were the man. You were right. I take full responsibility. I owe you a public apology, and
I'm 1-1, right? Like
you're 1-1. You made your
Tyler
first
Van Dyke's a loss. Yeah. Elijah Arroyo.
But you made up for it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, that's the reason. Beast. It's only one football, and you only get 60 to 70 offensive snaps. And so, who are you taking the ball? Are you giving Restrepo less targets? Are you giving Arroyo less targets? Those don't, to give the ball to your 4th string running back, it's hard. So, somebody's going to be the odd man out, and it looks like he might be. But, moving forward, he's on the roster for right now. He ain't getting in the portal before the national championship game. So, hey, look, find a way. You never know what can happen. Somebody goes down or whatever the case may be. You get an opportunity to prove yourself and improve your stock.
I'm going to put you on the spot. And I don't know if you saw this because you were traveling and then you were under the weather and then it was Thanksgiving. But I'm going to read you a tweet from Luther Campbell. And I want to get your honest thoughts. Did you see this?
Yeah.
You saw it?
Of course. Who did?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to read it for the audience. And then
make sure you bleep out some of the parts.
Yeah, I got it. Luther Campbell wrote, wide receivers coach Kevin Beard is the worst receivers coach in the history of the University of Miami football. Can't develop and don't know how to rotate. This man has only played for four receivers the entire year. Even Tyreek Hill and Jaden Waddle come out of the game for the Miami Dolphins. I look at the big picture. Who will we have next year with experience? More importantly, what's he going to tell recruits? Because four of these receivers on this list will be leaving for the NFL. That would leave us at a receiving core of players with no game experience. Every position on this team rotates in some shape or fashion except the receiver position. Your thoughts?
Well, and first we have to give, for people, we don't want to assume everybody knows who Luther Campbell is. Luther Campbell, a.k.a. Uncle Luke, famous rapper in the 80s, Two Live Crew. So long story short, Luther Campbell to me is one of the most provocative individuals ever because he fought the Supreme Court and won.
Yeah.
And he was a big Miami Hurricane supporter. This is why he gets a lot of sort of fanfare when he says A, B, and C because, he was known and has hinted at, helping the program in ways before NIL
for sure
became legal. So respect to Uncle Luke for everything he's done for the University of Miami, whether it was on or off the record.
Also, by the way, a huge proponent of youth football and
great
coach
community
in high school,
leader,
all that stuff.
Advocate for inner city and impoverished youth. There are tons of good things to say about them.
Yeah, for sure.
Him. This is not one of them. This was not his finest hour. Now, you're entitled to your opinion, but when you give an opinion and a take this large, especially, and I'm saying this black man to black man, when you're going to go at another brother, you have got to be based in facts. And he's just not. I mean, in Kane Nation, the thing that was so interesting about this was how Miami Hurricane fans rallied around Coach Beard in their defense. He didn't actually even have to say anything. I saw Dennis Smith take his back. I saw all of Kane Twitter take his back. I saw people pointing out stats. That's how I know the fourth best receiver on this team has 500 yards because I saw that on Twitter and it was manufactured by Kane's Twitter, which is very strong, by the way. And, Coach Beard, rightly or wrongly, one thing you have to say about him, last year, Xavier Restrepo had over 1,000 yards. Jacoby George had, I think, somewhere in the neighborhood of 800 yards.
Yeah, it was close to 900 between.
And then, like the third guy, I don't remember who was, had something like 600 yards, something crazy like that. The top three receivers with no tight ends, with a quarterback that will never see the light of day in the NFL.
Correct.
And that was under Coach Kevin Beard. So in a year where he actually had a capable quarterback, and he won't get credit for the tight end yards, but his four guys, everybody's over 500 yards. This is the most prolific offense in college football. They're scoring 40, they're averaging 38 or some crazy amount of points a game. And you come out negatively against them, the timing couldn't be worse.
There's a lot of speculation that he's upset about Ray Joseph not getting more playing time at wide receiver.
Because Ray played for him. He is the head coach at Miami Edison. Ray played for him at Miami Edison. Here's the deal with Ray. Who do you bench to give him more opportunities? Who are you comfortable, Brian? I'm talking to you now. Who are you comfortable taking out of this lineup to give Ray more game experience? Are you comfortable taking Restrepo?
No.
Are you comfortable taking Jacoby George, who's become cute? What about Isaiah Horton, Mr. Third Down?
Nope.
Sammy Brown?
I mean, you might have a case, but he's a veteran. I wouldn't take him out.
Also some size issues there,
right?
Big differential. And then you got Josiah Trader, who's the future, who's been getting sort of that fifth wide receiver kind of play time. then let's talk about the truth. Ray was given some opportunities early in the season, ball thrown right to him in his hands and drops it. Now, should he get more? Yeah, probably. But it's always what we don't see. We don't know what he's doing around the building. We don't know how much film he's watching. We don't know how prepared he is for games. We don't know how he's showing up to weight lifts. We don't know what kind of program guy he is that's either costing him opportunities or is he being unfairly treated. We don't know, but it's college football. The kid, for all intents and purposes, is a redshirt freshman sophomore. You know, he has several more years at the University of Miami. And more importantly, he's the starting on punt returns and has every opportunity to make plays that would give you a reason to look to put him more and get him more actively involved in the offense. And he's been underwhelming at that position. So I just don't see the need for a public deriding of this team, especially as it goes into the most important part of the season. You've only lost one game, and you have the most important game coming up at Syracuse on the road during Thanksgiving weekend. It just seems strange to me.
Yeah, I thought it was unnecessary, to say the least, and that would be an understatement.
That's polite. Yes.
Yeah. But we'll see how it goes moving forward. Uncle Luke, listen, he's done a ton for this area, and no one's going to ever take that away from him. Every once in a while, he can come out with an opinion that's a little bit off. So we'll just dismiss that and move forward. We're going to take a break. On the other side, we got some stuff to get to. One, we got to preview this game against Syracuse because Miami's going to have their work cut out for them. This is not going to be a pushover by no means. Two, the CFP came out and Lane Kiffin's upset. And three, I do want to ask you about your trip up to Ohio State, just to get a little view of what the Big Ten was like. All right, we'll do that and more on the other side. You're listening and watching the Real Ones Canes podcast. Back after this. Welcome back to the Real Ones Canes podcast. He is Brandon O'Doy. Follow him at Brandon_O'Doy. I'm Brian London. Follow me at Miami Radio Beast. Brandon, the Canes have one game left on the regular season schedule. That is up in Syracuse, in the Dome, against the Orange. And they have a prolific offense. As a matter of fact, while Miami has the number one total offense in the country, Syracuse's passing offense is actually ranked ahead of Miami by one spot. I think they're 2 and Miami's 3 in passing offense. They've got a guy in Kyle McCord that can absolutely throw the rock. They've got 3 or 4 receivers that are pretty unbelievable, whether it's Oronde Gadsden II, who we all know pretty well from his dad being a Miami Dolphin and him growing up down here. They got Pena, they got Meeks, they got a bunch of weapons. They got a running back in Allen who's pretty good. They've got a pretty good offense, a pretty good passing defense. Their rushing defense, though, is suspect. So, if we're going to try to figure out a way for Miami to win this one, it might be to keep the ball on the ground, which won't make the Cam Ward fans happy. But how do you see this one? What is Miami looking at as they head to a Syracuse team that has lost 3 games this year?
This game is going to define Miami Hurricanes season. It's probably the best team Miami has played since they went on the road to Louisville. At the end of the day, you're defined by what you do on the road in your conference. And, the Hurricanes have been second guessed by everybody. Coming into this game, making a statement and winning will be a testament to what this team has become. At some point, this defense has got to be the reason. And so you'd like to see them step up against a prolific passer. You're supposed to get some guys back. What difference it will make, I don't know. If you haven't played all season, I don't know how that benefits you. But at the end of the day, it can't get any worse. So I think Miami has to assert itself. I think you need Cam Ward to be at his best. And you're going to have to go in there and you're going to have to go to that dome and you're going to have to play your behind off, scrap and claw, and try to come out with a win. Because if you lose, you will be punished severely by the polls, by the public, by everybody saying, we told you this team was a pretender team all year. And you just don't want to open yourself up to those things. I've said all season it's ACC or bust. Once I realized how good this team was, it will feel disappointing if you don't make that ACC championship. And to make that championship, thank goodness, you do control your own destiny, but you have got to, Beast, if something flies in my eye, you have got to try to figure out how to get there, and you've got to get there. Doesn't matter who you play. I don't think it matters if it's Clemson or SMU. I personally like to play, Clemson in the ACC championship because, if you went to the championship years back, the last time Miami was ever in it, the only other time they were ever in it, Clemson blew them out. So Clemson is kind of owed a favor, but, you play whoever's there, and at the end of the day, well, you're not going to play Clemson because SMU's clinched, but you've got to get there. So at the end of the day, in order to get there, you got to win this game.
I'm worried about this game, Brandon. I'm worried about this game.
I think you have every right to be. And the last time you were worried about a game, I dismissed you, but I'm not doing that today.
Yeah, I listen. Looking on paper, Syracuse offensively is really good. I know Kyle McCord can make some mistakes. I mean, I remember watching him against Stanford and was like, what is happening here? And they lost that game. On the other hand, all of the games that they've won against conference opponents and opponents that weren't like FCS or whatever, they won by narrow margins. They've only won by mostly one score. Out. Right. They're not blowing people out.
They're a good team. They're not a great team.
So, listen, I am worried about this game. I do think that, in the end, Miami should win, but I know people will rip me, and I've been ripped on social media. Like I would not be shocked if
it wouldn't shock me either. But this is the thing I have to say: Miami doesn't seem to have learned this basic lesson. You can't come into games putting tremendous amounts of pressure on Cam Ward to pull a rabbit out of his hat. Well, how does that mean? You don't establish the run early. Like at Cal, one thing I liked. They came out, they established the run. Now they got away from it. You can't do that. Yes, you have a prolific passer, but establish the run. You can do that. Establish the run, get that done firmly. You know what I mean? And at that point, then you move into, sort of these other facets of your offensive game. But it's playoff football. You have got to establish the run. You have got to establish that you can control the line of scrimmage and move guys off the ball and do the safest thing in football, which is to run the ball. There's a reason why passing in the creation of this game was something that was rarely done.
Yeah, and fans are going to get upset with Miami running the ball because they still have hopes that Cam Ward can win the Heisman.
He's not going to win the Heisman. He's going to be a finalist. But he's not going to win the Heisman.
It's Travis Hunter's to lose at this point. And Genty from Boise State is,
it's pretty much where things are. And the other reason is because he would have had to go perfect. And when he lost in the way he lost at Georgia Tech, which is not his fault, you got to take the good with the bad. But you don't have juggernauts to beat. You don't have Heisman moments. And you kind of had them mostly at the beginning of the season. I just don't think the press is, he's having the quietest great season I've ever seen in college football. I mean, maybe that's just me.
Yeah, no, I mean, and people said he hasn't had Heisman moments. I mean, go back and look at some of the plays that he's made this year. I mean, get out.
That's all he's had is Heisman moments. Like every game. Every game in the first 4 or 5 ACC games, that's all they were.
All right,
he literally plays without a capable other side of the ball. Like, it's just, I don't know. I don't want to say too much, but it's crazy. Travis Hunter's darn good too. There's no shy in finishing second or third to him.
No,
the Genty thing to me is a little laughable, but I mean, yeah, he's got to be a finalist.
Yeah, for sure.
But I mean, look at Andres Borregales. I mean, he's automatic at field goal. He doesn't make the girls.
Listen, we could talk about guys getting snubbed for awards. I voted for Xavier Restrepo to be a finalist for the receiver award, and that didn't end up happening. So, it's just again, Miami doesn't get a lot of respect unless they are perfect. And that's unfortunately a different situation. All right, let's talk about the CFB playoff rankings that came out. Miami came out 6th. Oregon was 1, Ohio State 2, Texas 3, Penn State 4, Notre Dame 5, Miami 6. I thought Miami should have been ahead of Notre Dame because I think that loss that Notre Dame had to start the year to Northern Illinois was worse than Miami's loss to Georgia Tech. But, Notre Dame is college
Georgia
football.
Tech could beat Georgia. Remember, I said it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And then it was after Miami, it was Georgia, Tennessee, SMU, Indiana, Boise State, and Clemson to round out the 12. And then you have Lane Kiffin at 14. He's 8-3 in overall. And he's moaning and groaning because he believes that the SEC is superior and, SMU shouldn't be ranked ahead of them and Clemson shouldn't be ranked ahead of them and all this stuff. And here's my thought process. Let me know if you agree or disagree. And I know how you feel about the SEC and whether they're properly rated or overrated, which is they made their bed, right? They invited all of these powerhouse teams to join their conference. Why? For the money. Well, guess what you're trading to get all of that money? Yeah. You're going to end up beating each other.
Beating up on each other, man.
But you're going to beat each other while you're counting all of that money. So that's the decision you made. Don't lash out at other people because you decided to put that conference together to a point where you're going to cancel each other out.
What happened is when they were putting the conference together, they thought they were going to have automatics. And when they didn't get it because it fell apart and they had to go back because nobody would agree with, who would agree with it? The Big Ten and the SEC thought they were going to muscle everybody and say, hey, we got all the best teams in college football. We need automatics. And when they couldn't get those and it had to be equal, the Power 4 schools, all got, and so at the end of the day, it's really about the SEC finally realizing like, yeah, it is the toughest league to an extent. And because it is, you guys are going to battle each other and you're going to knock each other out. And what they need to understand is there's major parity that's happening even in their own league, but they're not used to. They're used to picking up games against Mississippi State saying, oh, this is the SEC, Vanderbilt, Kentucky, all these other schools. Well, these schools are fighting back now. Arkansas. These schools are taking wins from some of the blue bloods. And that's causing problems as well. They have issues in-house because now these guys can go out in the transfer portal and become way better than their recruiting could ever make them. Because, hey, I'm an SEC school recruiting you from a group of 5 school. What do you think you're going to do? Of course I'm going to Arkansas and I'm leaving Eastern Carolina. Of course I'm going to Kentucky and I'm leaving Western Kentucky. That doesn't even have to, and there's NIL on the books. So they've got bigger issues, but the league employs too many people. There are too many podcasts like this. There are too many people who benefit off of the big bad SEC. So nobody's going to tell the truth. This league might actually be, if you really break it down, it might be the 3rd best league. Right now the Big Ten is head over heels number 1. The ACC at the top is very strong. The Big 12 at the top is very strong. You know it because they're beating up on each other, so to speak. So, I think Miami, SMU, Clemson, and to some extent Duke. And, because Duke really should have beat Louisville. So that should be a 2-loss team. And then you have BYU, Iowa State, Colorado, Kansas State, in the Big 12 and Arizona State. Those conglomerate of teams, they could play with anybody. And it's just any given Saturday. It's matchups, it's preparation, it's who's healthy, it's nutrition, it's where the game is played. It's all of those things combined. So I just think this idea that one conference just has a complete, I don't see that being what it is. If any conference is dominant, it's the Big Ten. Oregon has been a tremendous. But see, even Oregon lost to an Ohio State team that I witnessed up close in transitioning into my trip.
Yeah.
This team can't complete a downfield pass beyond 15 yards. You know, like it just doesn't happen. That's not how they play football. Everything's a dink and dunk, and everything's a slant, or you get into the red zone and you throw a fade, or you throw a, like Will Howard is not the type of guy. That's why Miami didn't want him over Cam Ward.
Yep, valid point.
And he runs the ball. He's tough as nails, but they win the ball. They win ball games the old Big Ten way. They run the football. They're tough as nails on defense. They've got some issues at cornerback, but they win the ball the way Big Ten teams win games and have won championships for years, just being tough, nasty, and blue collar. They're not throwing the ball all around like that. And so, I mean, even Oregon and Ohio State, they've got warts too. I don't expect Oregon to win the national championship. They're number one, yes, but they go to Wisconsin and they get out of there with only their lives. And Wisconsin is a very mediocre team. So it's just parity. People just need to accept it. They've always wanted it. Nick Saban feared it. It's called parity. Michigan was a juggernaut last year. Look at them this year. They're an average, middle-of-the-road team. It's parity, Brian London. Parity is when everybody has almost a fair shot, and all things being considered, you've got to do more things right. You can't just say, I'm going to recruit everybody who's a 5-star. We're going to walk out here. We're going to run you over. It doesn't work like that anymore.
You know what? When there's portal transfers, NIL, recruiting, all that stuff, it gives more opportunities for guys to go to many different schools than they've gone to before. You know what else is because of parity? Coaching is really important.
Very important.
So
and when you can tell when people don't have it. So Lance Guidry, happy Thanksgiving. Hope it was really good. Hope you got a lot of sleep. Because tomorrow and next week, your most important 2 games here. You want to go out on the hot streak? You want to not be remembered for something negative? Let's go, Coach.
Real quick, one of the questions, it's Thanksgiving, right? So everyone's going to ask the question, hey, what's your favorite food? All that stuff. So they asked Mario, hey, what's your favorite Thanksgiving food? Bro, he had no answer. It took him about a minute.
Let's go.
It took him about a minute. He didn't even know it. He didn't even know it was Thanksgiving. He had no idea what was happening. I don't know.
He came here to win championships. He
right.
come here to eat turkey.
Exactly.
He was locked in. Pass the cafecito. Let's go.
That dude has only one focus, and it definitely does not include turkey.
Let's go. That's how I like my coaches. We don't even know it's Thanksgiving. Let's go.
Didn't even know. Speaking of which, you were up in Ohio State. What did that program look like to you?
Very strong. Like I say, they win the way they win. They don't, good defense, not great. Defensive line, very agile, amazing receivers. Jeremiah Smith, happy birthday to you, Jeremiah. It's his 19th birthday. Congratulations.
Happy birthday, buddy.
Great young man. Had a chance to hang around the facility. Met Chip Kelly, met Brian Hartline, met Nick Saban, game day, met, Ryan Day. Tremendous hospitality. I get it. I get why people go there. Tremendous hospitality. As a guy from Miami, living in Miami, it was kind of felt like being on enemy territory a little bit. But, there's mystique there. Woody Hayes, the statue hanging outside the facility. I mean, very great facilities. I mean, big stadium, awesome atmosphere. I can't say anything negative about it. You got to beat it.
Huge stadium right in the middle of campus, right next to the
middle of campus. Right next to the one end.
Yeah.
Big noon kick on the other end. Great college football atmosphere. Nothing negative to say about it. Just a tremendous time. Only thing that got me was getting a little sick, but I'll take it. It's what college football should be about, man. And, Indiana thought they were good, and then they found out the hard way. It's hard to play on the road in the Big Ten. I mean, like I said, parity. This Indiana team's been rolling over everybody. They came in, they got out quick. It looked like, oh, snap, Ohio State's in trouble. And then they just, they start doing what they do, and the rest is history. The thing about pretending teams, the longer they keep getting off the hook and fixing things and getting better and people start buying in, they start shoring up a lot of their stuff. I saw Colorado do it. I saw Kansas do it. Miami's done a fair amount of it. SMU's done a lot of it. Duke's done a tremendous amount of it. Teams getting better as as the year goes on, making fewer mistakes and becoming more dynamic in ways that they had not threatened. And that's what I think Miami has to do. Miami has to threaten in this game in a way they have not threatened before. Is the defense going to become a factor? Is that D-line for all the money they make? And it's not about the money, but for all these people they brought in, are they going to finally be the reason Miami wins the game? You got to see. Progression, development.
Well,
growth.
It'll all be on the line against Syracuse on Saturday. And one of us will be here, probably me, and maybe Brandon will join me for a post-game reaction. 3:30 up at the Dome in Syracuse, Miami, and Syracuse.
If they lose, I'll join you. If they win, you're on your own.
All right, we'll make that deal. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We appreciate you always. We'll see you next time on the Real Ones Canes podcast. Peace.